Today, we're baking a cake. Woo! Isn't that wonderful? Mr. Mike, you want to come take this for me and put this on the table, please? Okay, not really. As you know, we're not really baking a cake. Metaphorically speaking, we're baking a cake today. Today we're going to be talking about the basics of speech writing and speaking. I am going to give you a 10,000 foot view of speech writing and speaking. Originally, we talked about me just talking to you all about doing speaking, but I felt you also need to know how to write a speech, right? I mean, you can be told, okay, I want you to speak on the subject, but if you don't know how to write a speech, it won't really help your speaking. So it's a process that I thought we needed to look at it as a whole. So there's going to be a lot of information. Warren Buffett was at a convention, and there was a young lady, and she asked him a question, and she said, "Can you give me a tip on advancing my career? I want to get in upper management." And he said, "You need to stand out. And to stand out, you need to be unusual. And there is one skill you need to learn." He said, "It can be hard, you may not like it, and it may take you a little while, but this skill will take you 50 years into the future. But it can also be a liability for 50 years if you don't know how to do it." And he said, "You need to learn how to speak. It makes you stand out. People take notice." And we're all communicators here. We're writing, a form of communication. But for many of you, you're also asked to speak. Now, whether you're at a booth, selling your books, or you're in a room like this talking to people, you need to know how to communicate in an effective way that's going to grab their attention and that they're going to be able to follow. So I thought the best way to do this, because I am giving you so much information, I'm going to relate this to baking a cake. How many of us have baked a cake? Most of us, right? And even if we haven't baked it, we've watched someone bake it. So I figured that would be the easiest way to start with this. So I'm going to talk about 6 different elements, 6 different main points. When you bake a cake, you have to have the right tools. Well, that's going to be our planning phase because you've been asked to speak. There are some elements that go into that. Next, in baking, you have to get your ingredients together, right? Well, you have to have content to write a speech. Once we have our ingredients, we're going to mix them up. This is when we're going to start writing. Once it's all mixed up, we're going to pour that puppy in a pan. It's going to bake. This is when we're practicing. The cake is out. We're going to ice it because I need icing on my cake. There are things that you need to think about on speech day, and then that cake is ready to eat. We're going to eat our cake. We're going to deliver our speech. So, are you guys ready? Let's bake a cake. So the first thing you need to do in baking a cake, we have to get all our tools together. Do I have the measuring cups? Do I have the measuring spoons? Do I need a spatula? Do I have the right pan? Because a bundt cake requires a different pan than just a layer cake. Make sure that you have all the right utensils. Well, the same thing in speaking. We have to have different ingredients to go into it. You've been asked to speak. This is our planning phase. What's your topic? Is it a general topic? Is it a specific topic? So today I'm doing a general topic, the basics of speech writing and speaking, instead of specifically talking about speaking. Am I informing you today? Am I entertaining you? Am I educating you? Am I persuading you? I think today it's a little bit of informing and educating. And is there a special occasion that you're doing this for? Before you can write that speech, you have to start with what's the topic. Then we're going to go into how much time are they giving you? Is it 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes? Now, today, it's a 30-minute speech, which is why I can cover more topics, more main points than I would normally. Normally, I do 3 to 5. My average speech is around 15 minutes. So depending on the time will depend again on how much content and what you can cover. And then who's your audience? Are you talking to kids? Are you talking to adults? Is it only women, such as a Seroptimus Club? Or is it men and women? When I talk to kids, I'm going to speak different than when I'm speaking with adults. It's all part of that planning process. Then what's the tech involved? Do they have tech for a PowerPoint or no PowerPoint? Can you do any demos if you need to do a demo? Is there a lectern? No lectern. What kind of mic? Do you get a mic? And if it's a mic, is it handheld or lapel? And when we get into speech day, I'll talk more about the reason you need to know about the type of mic if they have one. And then finally, what kind of room is it? Is it a big room? This is a pretty decent sized room, so you know it's going to hold quite a bit of people. But is it a smaller room so you know that it's going to be more compact and maybe there won't be as big an audience? Or is it an auditorium with school where I'm speaking to a lot of kids at once? Or is it a restaurant, which I've done many times in a restaurant? Sometimes you have a room where you're off to the side or off specifically where they close the doors and there's no distraction. But I've also spoken where there's a table and all that clinking and clanking is going on around me and I don't have a mic. All of this we need to take into consideration during the planning phase, getting those tools together. So we've got our tools. Now we need our ingredients, right? Are we baking this by scratch? You know, then we need our flour, our salt, our eggs, baking soda, vanilla, or is it a package mix? You don't have to put as much into that. Well, it's the same thing with our contents. Now, once you know your topic, you want to write out your thesis statement. What is your statement? So for me, I'm talking on the basics of speech writing and speaking. That's what I want to gather content for. So what are you gathering content for? And a lot of times I'll sit down, I'll just do some free writing. What do I think I want to speak about? What do I think I know about it? Do I have some information at home that I can pull from it, say another speech that I've given? Or statistics that I may already have on hand? Or do I now need to go do some research? Do I need to do research on the internet? Do I need to go to a library? Do I need to interview people? You have to get all of that information gathered together so you kind of have an idea, all right, this is kind of, you may have thought I'm going this way, but then you're gathering information and you're thinking, no, maybe I want to talk about this instead. So you're gathering that info, you're kind of, the idea's percolating, you know what your topic is. So then you want to kind of organize it a little bit. Okay, what do I think my topics are going to be? What are some of my supporting material within there? And so you kind of have an idea before we move on to that very next phase, and that is writing. Now, and I don't know if everybody got it. I know there were a couple people that came in afterwards and the papers over here. This is where we're going to talk about the speech outline template. I gave everyone a copy, and if you don't have one, raise your hand and Mike will get that to you. Don't forget Jenny too back behind over here, Mike, as well. Yep. Now, have you ever been in a speech and it's really disjointed? It's hard to understand. They make a statement and then they make another one and there's no connection. They tell a story that had nothing to do with what you thought they were talking about. And about halfway through the speech you go, oh, now I get it. But it's taken so much time for you to figure it out. The speech isn't any fun listening to. It's taken all the joy out of what they have to say because it took you so long to figure out what they wanted to say. That's why you need to always start with your speech outline. It's kind of like a roadmap. It's your foundation like a house. The house will fall down if you don't have the right foundation. This will help if you follow your roadmap. It's going to help you so that it's going to make your speech more credible, make it more enjoyable. People will be able to follow what you have to say. It doesn't mean they're going to agree with everything that you say, but they're going to know what you're talking about. And that's what you want. So, as you can see on the top here, it starts with the topic. So for me, I wrote in my topic as speech writing and speaking. But my thesis is the basics of speech writing and speaking. And my general purpose, because it's not specific, is to inform and educate. So I have the top of that filled out. So as I go to start writing, or in baking, we're mixing all those ingredients together. Now I can start my roadmap. On this you see there's an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Your introduction and your body are only 5 to 10% of the speech. Each of them is only 5 to 10%. So your body of the speech is 80 to 90%. So where do you think we're going to start? With the body, because you can't have an introduction if you don't even know what you're talking about, and you can't conclude it because you don't know what you're talking about. So we start with the body of the speech. So in the body of the speech, you would have 3 to 5 main points depending on how long you're speaking. Now today again, because I am speaking so much longer, I'm doing 6 main points. And you can see that on their body. Then it says main point number 1. Then it has subpoints and it has supporting points. So my main point today, my first main point was the baking tools, the planning phase, right? That was my first main point. And you go to the subpoint, I'm going to go to one of my subpoints was topics. Remember, the first thing I said was you got to know your topic. And within the topic I said, is it general, is it specific, is it informing, entertaining, and so on. And that would be part of the supporting. On the B portion, I'm just going to pick out one more. I talked about the tech. That would be another supporting point of the main point, and the main point was the planning phase, getting the tools together. And within the mic, I said, is it handheld or is it lapel? Again, supporting them. So that's part of my first main point. And then we went from, okay, we have the tools. The second thing we talked about was the ingredients. And the ingredients pertaining to this was, what is our content for writing the speech? So that would be my second point. My second point, number 2, ingredients, content. And my first sub-point was I talked about writing that thesis statement, because you can't gather material if you don't know what you're going to write about. And then in the B point I put gather. I'm going to gather the information. Do I need to do research? Do I need to interview? Does that kind of make this can be a bit confusing. I'm hoping the way I just explained it is helpful, that you kind of see it's a roadmap. It's not being, you don't have to always stick to it, but this is where you start. You start with that roadmap. So we have our body done. Now we're going to get into the introduction. And on that speech outline, it gives you some hints. It says attention getter, connect with the audience, establish credibility, your thesis statement, preview your main points. So in your introduction, this is where you're going to grab your audience's attention. So the first thing I said today, I forgot to move this. The first thing I said today was, we're baking a cake. Everybody was very happy, got your attention. I did a speech one time in Toastmasters, and I was buying my very first gun. And this was my opening line. It's my birthday, and I'm buying a gun. Now, whether you like guns or don't like guns, I got your attention. And that's what you want to do. You want to get your audience's attention so they want to know what else you're going to talk about. You want to make sure that you're introducing your topic, your thesis statement. For me, again, the basics of speech writing and speaking. And then you go over the points, which I did. I talked about all the 6 points I was going to cover. And this is also a time for you to develop some rapport with your audience, right? Connect with them, interact with them a little bit, right? I love doing that. I love interacting with my audience so that it's more of a conversation. I'm not speaking at you. We're having a conversation. So after we've got our body, we've done our introduction. Now we're going to do our conclusion. Now in Toastmasters, we're taught that your closing can make or break your speech. The success of your speech is the effectiveness of your closing. Can anyone tell me why that might be? Anyone have any ideas? Yes, sir.
Last impression?
Last impression. That's exactly what I was looking for. It's the last thing that people hear. So you have to make that lasting impression. I'm going to give you an example. I spoke at the very first Ignite, and I had to be talked into it. It was the first time we had done this. Sam That, he's the one that started it, and he came to me, oh, you got to be in this. Nope, I ain't doing it. And he said, no, the speech you just gave in Toastmasters would be perfect. Nope, not doing it. Eventually I relented, and I did it. My speech was about wanting mandatory spay-neuter laws for animals to cut down on pet overpopulation and euthanizing needlessly healthy animals. That was what I talked about. And at the end of my speech, I had this thing I was going to say, and I have to credit this to Kathy Martin. I know if any of you know Kathy Martin, and she gave me the very last line. And I still have people that say, I remember that speech because of the last line. And I'm going to give you that. And I wrote it down so that I don't mess it up. This was my slide. This was my final slide. And I was talking, building up to this, was that the politicians don't want to do these type of laws. They do breed-specific laws for spay-neuter, such as pit bulls, but they won't do it across the board, and it doesn't help if it's not across the board. So this is what I said. The powers that be need to quit being afraid and pass mandatory spay-neuter laws. Powers that be, the politicians. The powers that be need to grow a pair so we can snip a pair and save the life of animals like these. That is what people remember, so they remember the speech. I know Kathy Martin was awesome that she gave me that. And it made an impression on the audience. They may not have agreed with everything that I said. They may not have thought this was necessary, but they remembered my speech because of that last line. Make it memorable. You can use a quote, you can use a statement, you can use a question. And that also goes for your introduction. You can do a statement, a compelling quote, a statistic. All of that to get your audience's attention. So, we have our body. We have our intro, we have our conclusion. But if you look on your paper, there's something that I did not cover, and you will see that right before main point number 2, and it says transition statement. In order to know, for your audience to follow when you're going from one point to the next, you need to make sure that you have clear transitions. For instance, when I finished the introduction and we're going to go into the body, I said, let's bake a cake. Y'all knew I was done with my introduction. We're going to get into the meat of that speech. As I transitioned from each main point, I'll say, okay, we have all of our ingredients together. We've gathered the content. Now we're going to mix those ingredients up. We're going to start writing. Clear transition from one point to the next. And your transitions could be words, phrases, statements, questions. You just want to make sure that you're having a clear way for people to follow where you are. So, our speech is written, but we're not done. When you're writing a book or writing anything, what is it that they say? After you've written it the first time, what do they always say? What? Rewrite, but what I was looking for, but that's it. That's where the work begins. You've done the initial, but now this is where the work begins. That cake is in the oven baking, and you got to make sure it's baking at the right temperature, and you don't overbake it, you don't underbake it. That's work, at least for me it is. That's work, and this is where we start practicing. You're going to practice and practice and practice until you hate the speech. You're going to practice it so much because you want to know it like the back of your hand. When you are practicing, it's not about being perfect. The way I'm giving the speech here now is, I can tell you I've said it 12 different times at home, but I'm giving you the same information. It's not about saying the exact same thing. It's about giving you the proper information for that section. When you're writing a speech, first of all, you don't want to memorize it. Can anyone tell me why you should not memorize a speech? Yes, sir. Mr. Richard.
Because if you memorize it and you forget one line, you are lost.
You're lost. Where was I? And not just that, when you've memorized it, instead of engaging with the audience, what are you doing? Your mind's going, okay, what's the next word? What's the next word? What's the next word? You can't engage because all you're thinking about is what's the next thing I'm supposed to say. So you don't want to memorize it. That's where the outline comes in. You have the outline, you have the roadmap, you have the information. You are practicing it so you know what you want to say. And you're practicing as your rewrite. Maybe you're saying it and you're going, oh, that word just isn't working. I need to choose a different word at this point. Maybe I don't like the order of my topics, of my main points, and I need to change those. This is where you're going to find out what is working, what isn't, and revise it as you need it. This is the work. This is the baking. It is the practice and practice and practice. And you definitely don't want to read a speech. People's eyes will glaze over because it's just da-da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Again, you're not engaging, you're not interacting, and it's not enjoyable just to hear someone just read. If you're in story time, that's different, but a speech isn't story time, so. The other thing is, it's okay if you need to write down specific facts or quotes. I told you I wrote down on a paper when I did that last slide, I said, I wrote this down because I wanted to get it right. I don't want to have to memorize quotes or statistics or any kind of information like that. I always write them down so I have them word for word. It just takes the stress out. I know my speech, I can just pick up a little index card with what that specific element is. And then, if you're going to be using a mic and you're not used to it, practice it with the hand brush. I have done that so many times. I just practice like I'm talking into a mic. I'll practice in front of a mirror. I'll practice with my husband. Anything that will help you to gain confidence, to become more at ease, and to know that material. And the other thing is, think about what kind of vocal variety do I want to use? When I talked about the last part of the speech of the animals, and I talked forcefully, the powers that be. But at the very end I said, to save the life of animals like these. That softness is impactful. Think about that when you're giving a speech. And then what type of hand gestures, if any? I tend to talk a lot with my hands. That's just kind of how I do. Sometimes in Toastmasters it was always, cool the hand gestures. Just kind of bring it down because I talk a lot with my hands. So, we have our tools, which was our planning. We had our ingredients. We got the content. We mixed those ingredients. We wrote our speech. That cake is baking. We are practicing, revising, and we are ready for the next phase. That cake comes out and it looks so good. It's just lacking the icing. We got to put some icing on that. And so there's a couple of things you need to think about as that cake is cooling on speech day. What are you going to wear? You need to dress for the occasion. When I'm speaking with kids, depending on, especially if I'm in a classroom, I know I'm going to be on the floor, I'm in jeans and tennis shoes. If I'm speaking with the service club, I am business casual. I'm going to dress up a little more. The other thing, remember I told you, is it a mic you're using? Is it a handheld or is it a lapel? If it's a lapel mic, they have a battery pack. For a guy, it's easy. They just hook that on their belt or their pants or their pocket. But ladies, I'm wearing a dress. I don't have a belt. Where would I put that battery pack? I can put it, I guess that could be viable. Sorry, you didn't see the
It was
in the back as she pulls her phone out. I sometimes will put it, the back of this dress was low enough I could hook it back here. Some women have hooked it on their collar way up here. That's a little too uncomfortable for me. So a lot of times I'll opt to just hook it on my bra strap. But these are things you need to think about if you know you're going to have a battery pack. You want to be comfortable. Always arrive early. Get there so you have the lay of the land. You might even have a chance to interact with the audience a little bit, depending on the organization or the type of audience that you have.